Tuesday was election day in America, so you know what, Leaf Tulane? We better cast our own Locked On college basketball ballots.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Happy Wednesday to you, everybody. You're joining us at the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shea, joined by our good buddy, Leaf 8 No, I'm just kidding. Leaf Tulane is here with us. It's fun to have fun with names, Leaf. I don't know what I'm doing out here. But you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch. I want to remind you, you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. We want to send a special shout out to all you everydayers joining us, and of course, all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. That thing is heating up right now. Lots of good conversation going on in there every day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get right into this thing. Leaf, coming up today on the show, the Locked On College Basketball Top 25 poll is out. You and Andy Patton and I released that on Monday. So we'll look at it, make some observations based on our first couple days of action. We're going to get ready for Wednesday night's action. Tuesday didn't give us a ton, but we do have our final 6 AP Top 25 teams in action tonight, Wednesday, including Coach Cal's debut in Fayetteville, Arkansas. But Leaf, here's where we want to start. Tuesday was election day in our great country. So we thought we should do some voting of our own here on Locked On College Basketball. So Leaf, you and I are going to cast our votes in 4 different categories to kick off the season. A fun little game. Folks, you can play along at home with us. So Leaf, let's get right into it. We have been inundated the last couple of years with teams, the best teams really being dominated by upperclassmen. And I think I'm not necessarily thinking we're going to have better teams that are led by freshmen this year, but man, I feel like we've got a great crop of freshmen making big impacts early. So our first vote is cast your vote, Leaf Tulane, for the best freshman performance of the first 2 days.
Happily, I will tell you that there's a lot of good candidates. Like, that's the fun part of college basketball is we haven't even seen all of them yet. And unfortunately, Ace Bailey's not playing after this one's recorded, but there has been no shortage of excellent candidates. I'm going with Ace Bailey's counterpart in the Northeast, and I'm going with a guy named Derik Queen. Derik Queen had 22 points and 20 rebounds in his first college basketball game. Like, you can't really argue with statistics there. And then you actually watch the game, and he's got good feel. Like, he scores on the inside. He scores with head fakes. He scores with a dominating presence on the glass, getting O boards. And yes, you can say it wasn't Big Ten competition, but 22 and 20 is unbelievable. It's very rare to see players do that even once in a college basketball season. So to do it in your first ever game, that's my vote for freshman of the week, freshman of the day. Whatever we wanted to call it.
Whatever we're voting for, I'm voting for Derik Queen. Yeah, that's a great poll, Leaf. I love that. A couple honorable mentions. Want to note Trey Johnson at Texas, who dropped 29 points in his debut in a losing effort. Really, really good stuff there. And of the list of people I considered, he was the lone player that did it against another high major opponent. Con Knipple, great performance from Duke, I thought. Several others, but for me, it came down to, along with Derik Queen, either Egor Demin at BYU or Will Riley at Illinois, Leaf, because I thought both of them did some phenomenal things. But ultimately, Leaf, I'm going to go with Egor Demin. At BYU, this dude drops a double-double, the Russian coming over and just giving it to us. And when I say double-double, it wasn't the same as Derik Queen. It's points and assists from this 6'9" kid. 18 points, 11 assists, did it on 7 of 13 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3, 4 rebounds, and 4 steals with just 1 turnover to go along with those 11 assists. This dude, I'm very excited to watch him and the Cougars play this year. Leaf, I know that you are seeing it as a Utah resident. I'm sure you've heard a lot about it, and I know you actually recorded a podcast earlier today talking about it. So let's go to our next category here, which is going to be best team performance so far. Leaf, who you casting your vote for?
There's only one answer to this one. It's the Gonzaga Bulldogs.
Yeah.
I thought they'd win. I thought that they are a top 4 team. I tweeted a couple weeks ago that there are 4 teams I think are better than the rest, and I still believe that. And Gonzaga made me feel really good about that prediction, putting them in there and having them top 4. And I know that's not a huge jump, 4 to 6. 6 is what they're ranked in the AP poll. 4 is where I had them, and
4 is where we have
low.
them, by the way, at Locked On College Basketball.
I think we might be too low. They're really, really good. And they played a top 8 team in the country, and they beat them by more than some teams that are ranked top 5 in the country beat other teams that are not in the top 200 in KenPom. And that's why their performance of the week, and I don't think it's close. Like this, if this were an 100 votes getting thing, I think they should be unanimous.
Yeah. There is no other team you can vote for, so I'm not going to belabor it. We were joking beforehand, Leaf. I said, I do also want to throw some love to Louisville just for winning a basketball game. It's just good to see college basketball having Louisville win. Held Morehead State to just 14 points in the first half. All right, Leaf, our third vote we are going to cast today. Best or biggest individual non-freshman breakout performance so far.
Whew, that's a tough one. The guy that I wouldn't say it's breakout because he's really good, is a guy that we both love. So I'll leave that one for you.
Okay.
And you go here. Let me think of another one.
Okay.
Because I don't want to steal your thunder on this one.
Man, for me, it's Cam Jones. And like Leaf just said, this is not a breakout in terms of never done it before. Cam Jones drops 32 points in Marquette's first game of the season on a wildly efficient 14 of 16 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3 assists, 0 turnovers to go with it. And it's not even a career high. He's got 2 34-point games. But Leaf, here's why I pick it in terms of a breakout performance is because now he has to be the dude. Now that Tyler Kolek's gone, now that Oso Ighodaro's gone, it's solely on Cam Jones's shoulders. Before, when he's doing that, it's with those guys around him. And I think as most people have looked at the Big East this year, they've thought, hey, it's UConn and it's Creighton, and then Marquette's going to drop back a little bit from that top 3 we've seen the last couple years. I think we have expected Cam Jones to do these kind of things, but you still got to step up and do it. And he clearly did it in a big way in their first game of the season, maybe able to help bring up Shaka Smart's team to kind of keep pace with UConn and Creighton and not end up falling behind.
Okay, I've got a dark horse. This one is a player that I don't think all of our listeners know. I'm going with Kobe Sanders of Nevada. He had 27 points in his Wolfpack debut. He's replacing Blackshear, who was such an integral factor for a team that was a 10 seed last year, should have won their game against Dayton. And he and Nick Davidson, speaking of Sanders, now combined for 53 points. And this is a team that I think will be in the NCAA tournament. So they should be a household name sooner rather than later. So Kobe Sanders, 27 points, transferred up from Cal Poly. That's my breakout player. And the guy that I think everyone wants to break out and everyone knows is Braden Smith.
Yep.
It's 15 assists.
Yep.
I think Purdue's not that great this year. I'll just be honest. I was the lowest of our trio when ranking them. I don't think they're that great, but Braden Smith has taken a leap. He had 15 assists, a near triple-double, orchestrated everything against Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
I like it. One more category we're going to vote in, Leaf Tulane. Most shocking result so far of the first 2 days. Now, Leaf, let's be fair as we say this. We really haven't had a James Madison over Michigan State from last year kind of result yet in terms of like an upset, but shocking result doesn't just have to mean an upset. It can mean a whole lot of things. So Leaf Tulane, cast your vote for most shocking result so far.
How resoundingly Gonzaga thumped Baylor. I expected them to win. I expected it to be close. I expected Gonzaga's experience, and in my opinion, the best guard on the floor to win out the game, a little better depth in the front court, and it was a fine margins game. Like they knew each other better, therefore the team with more chemistry would win. No, they were more athletic. They were better at every facet of the basketball game. Each position, they were better. It wasn't close, and I think that says more about Gonzaga than it does about Baylor, and that's the scary thing.
Yeah, that's really well said, Leaf. We'll talk about Gonzaga more coming up in a little bit, but I'm with you. They look so good. My most shocking result so far is North Florida beating South Carolina 74-71. Look, the Gamecocks, I think, want to have some NCAA tournament aspirations. They get back Colin Murray Boyle, and he had a nice game, but this is a resume killer right out of the gate. The Ospreys are a sub 200 team at KenPom, and South Carolina just simply cannot drop games like this. So that for me was the most shocking result so far. Fun little election game for us there, Lee, folks. We'd love to hear how you would have voted in each of those four categories. Now, Leaf, we've mentioned a couple times our Locked On College Basketball Top 25, which you and Andy and I dropped on Monday for the first time this year. So I want to know, who are we too high on? Who are we too low on? And who's going to make us just look silly for not including them in our first top 25 of the year? We'll answer that in just a second. Right after I tell you about hymns, well, fellas, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously and you always want to be ready. Well, Hims provides access to treatments that can help give you that boost of confidence so you'll be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your own couch. I love that because this process is 100% online, so there's no need for like an uncomfortable, awkward doctor's visit. If prescribed, the medicine is going to ship directly to you in discreet packaging for free. You just answer a series of questions on their website, and then a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything for you. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. This product mentioned are chewable compound products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscriptions required. Prices may vary based on product and subscription plan. All right, Leaf Tulane, Isaac Shade here with you, and we want to tell you that the first Locked On College Basketball Top 25 of the young season is out right now. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see it here on screen. If you're listening, that's okay. I'm going to share the top 10 with you. Now, folks, you need to be aware the vast majority of these teams have already played, and the rest will be in action on Wednesday night that haven't played yet. Leaf, I'm not going to read out the whole top 25, but let me just do the top 10 from 10 down to 1. Number 10, North Carolina. 9, Arizona. 8, Baylor. 7, UConn. 6, Iowa State. 5, Duke. 4, Gonzaga. 3, Houston. 2, Kansas. And number 1, the Alabama Crimson Tide, coming off that first ever Final Four trip. So, Leaf, what I want to do is do like 3 categories of first impressions with this thing based on both how you and I both individually feel and based on the first games that we've seen for several of these teams. So let's start with who were we as a group too high on? And you can either take this based off of your opinion or based on what you've seen in this first couple days of action.
For myself personally, and I think probably as a group, I think we're too high on the state of Texas.
That's well said. Go with it.
Except for Texas Tech. I actually really think they're great, and I think the group is too low on them. I'm outing you and Andy. Texas Tech is better than 16, but myself personally, I had Baylor 8. I think I was wrong, and the funny thing is when I did my Big 12 preview, I had them as 6th because I think Texas Tech is better than Baylor. So I don't know where my brains I got crossed in the middle there. But Baylor's issue, in my opinion, is they have 2 forwards. They have Ojonwuna playing next to Omir, and then they also have 3 diminutive guards. And VJ Edgecombe wasn't the dude that was promised in that first game either.
Nope.
So Texas, I think they're poorly coached. They don't have a point guard. Trey Johnson was super talented, but they took horrible shots as a team. And yes, I know Tremont Mark was out.
Right.
But
I was going to say, let's make sure to note that.
That doesn't help shot selection, though. He's great, but he takes horrible shots too. And then the last one in the state of Texas, which is not ranked on here, but I had them ranked at 22. I want to say I had them. Was Texas A&M, and they blew a lead against UCF, up 9 with 4 minutes left. And didn't score. And they just don't look very good. They get a lot of rebounds. They play hard, but they don't have someone to supplement the scoring of Wade Taylor. They lost Boots Radford, and it looks to be an enormous loss.
Leaf, I love how you put that. Outside of Texas Tech, we are too high collectively on the state of Texas, man. That is very well done. Yes, you called out Andy and I. I'm looking at where we each had Texas Tech. You are the highest on them at 13. I have them 17 and Andy 19. And so, yeah, I think Texas Tech is going to be very legitimate this year. They had a nice performance to kick off their season on Tuesday night. And I really, really think like the Jacob Toppin edition, Leaf, is just massive for them. So I'm really glad for that. Yeah, Baylor, we are clearly too high on, although I do want to wait and see what happens Saturday night when they play Arkansas. Like, was it, as you said earlier, was that a case of just more about Gonzaga than it was about Baylor? I think we'll learn more about Baylor against Arkansas on Saturday night. So kind of I'm in wait and see mode with them. But yes, I love that none of the three of us had Texas A&M in our top 20. You have them 21, me 23, and Andy at 26. And I got no problems with that. Like, they might come around and come back together, but we'll see. And then as for Texas, something I think both Andy and I have said is that we like their starting five. But yeah, as you said, it's like, I don't know that the pieces are going to all fit together. And even beyond that, there isn't much depth. So we'll see if the Longhorns can hang around in the top 25, both in our poll and the AP. The other team, and Leaf, you mentioned that you were a little bit lower on them. And I think I'm really curious to see how they do and where they land, is Purdue. They are 14th in our poll. You were the lowest on them at 19. I have them 13 and Andy 14. I can't remember off the top of my head where they are on the AP poll. Are they higher in the AP poll than where we have them?
I think they're 14 on each.
Okay. Yes, you are correct. They were 14. I just pulled up the AP poll. So, we and the AP voters might be a little bit too high on Purdue. We'll wait and see on that. Leaf, let's go to the flip side of this question. Who are we as a group on too low on?
I think Gonzaga's the answer that I have to say because of the performance that they had, but obviously you can only move up so much.
Right, because it becomes a question of like, who do you take out of that top three of Bama, Kansas, Houston if you move them up?
Well, the funny thing is Bama won by 50, Kansas won by 30, and Houston won by 47. But they didn't do it against the top 10 team.
That's right.
So I would put Gonzaga number one at the next week. And in fact, I probably will. We'll see. Obviously, things can change. Houston looked really good. Iowa State looked really good. Duke looked solid as well. They won by 34, something like that. And UConn we see tonight. So I don't think that there's going to be too many changes between our top seven, but I think you have to contemplate moving them up. As for another team that I think could be considered moving up, I think you're going to see teams that are outside the top 25 leapfrog their way in because of the resounding nature of their wins. Kentucky, for instance, obviously a big name, so I'm not saying anything crazy. Kentucky, Illinois, the teams that win by a lot, and we had in our receiving votes column. And I also think Ole Miss, and I know I had them in. I think they looked pretty good in their winning by 30. But I just think you're going to see a lot of teams that win by a lot feel underrated. But the one I feel is underrated just overall in our poll is Texas Tech, even though they're 16th, which is way, way higher than everywhere else. I just love their combination of athletes. I think Grant McCaslin's one of the best coaches in the country, right? And no one talks about. Like, he's in a league where there have been national champion winners, and I still feel like he gives them a tactical advantage on just about every single night. Like, he played slow at North Texas. He inherits a group of kind of transfers, makeshift jigsaw puzzle, pieces them together, 6th seed. I know they lose to NC State. This year's team's way better than last year's, and it's a way better year of college basketball in terms of overall talent level, in my opinion. But I think this is a 4 seed hiding in plain sight. And I know 4 times 4 is 16, but I think they're better than a 4 seed because they'll be playing the Big 12. And so they're going to take some lumps.
Well, and like, we might be too low on them, but the AP poll is way too low on them because they're not even in it. They're in others receiving votes in the AP poll. I think 29. I think they were 4th in the others receiving votes of 29th. So, Leaf, I like that. And I'm with you on Gonzaga. Here's what I'm so mad at myself about. I think I went with groupthink, not just like you and Andy as well, but like nationally on this Kansas Alabama debate. And I wish I had just stuck to my gut and just gone with Gonzaga number 1 out of the gate, because I think that is a legitimate and defensible position to have them in, as you just said there a second ago. So I like that. And yeah, even though we have them 4th, I think we might be too low on the Bulldogs. So
And here's something behind the scenes for you guys. We have a group chat, and I put it in there a couple weeks ago. I said, guess who my one and only future is on? And I'll tell you, I think it's a good value. And we were kind of in jest joking about which teams it could be, but it's the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I thought at
right.
plus 1,800, and all these other top 10 teams were way ahead of them, like not even close. The only one I think was at all close was North Carolina, who I also think is a little too high, by the way. And that's not a shot at Isaac at all. I like North Carolina.
No, I'm with you. I think we're more of a in the teens somewhere.
Yeah, and I think Gonzaga was the best value. I picked them to win the battle for Atlantis as well. I think they're going to have an unbelievable season. And here's just a random thought I shared with Andy, but you guys can get it as well. Is this reminds me of the 2017 team that lost to Isaac's North Carolina side, because they have a big on the interior that's really good, but not like Chet Holmgren. It's not Drew Timme. They're not some sort of star in the grand scheme of college basketball. They're really, really good. They have a lot of depth, a lot of wings, big bodies. They're more athletic than their competition, which has been Gonzaga's downfall on teams that are good and skilled, but they don't have the athletes defensively. They have the athletes this year. And then they have a guy running the show who's going to have a 4-to-1 assist to turnover in Ryan Nembhard. It reminds me of Nigel Williams-Goss, even though they do it a little bit differently. It reminds me of this 2017 Gonzaga team. I think this is Mark Few's best chance, other than the year they went nearly undefeated. But that said, Baylor was better the whole year. People just didn't want to say it.
That's right. And I tell you what, that 17 Gonzaga team came within just whiskers, a couple plays here or there, and Mark Few already has a national championship. Leave quickly, and then we need to move on. Who is outside our Locked On College Basketball top 25 that should be in it? Who's the team that's going to make us look silly for not including them? You've already mentioned Kentucky is a team that can maybe hop in there. I think Ohio State is a team that I ranked in mind. They looked, as we've said, Texas doesn't look like world beaters, but Ohio State knocked them off on night 1. So that there's some stuff to look at with that there. Anybody else that you would include in that, Leaf?
I think Illinois will be a mainstay in the top 25 because their offensive firepower is
so good.
Unbelievable. I think they're going to take some lumps. They're going to give up a ton of points, but they just have enough talent where I'm a believer. I think Kentucky, like you alluded to there, is going to score a ton. And I believe in Mark Pope's offensive mind. And before SEC play, I think they're going to win a lot of games, even though they play quality competition, because they will play together. They will play, and the scouting report's not settled. Like, you're not going to know how to guard them because they don't know who's number 1 option. And I actually think that helps build continuity. It just becomes problematic towards the end of games, and they won't play too many close games for a while. So I think they'll be ranked for a while.
All right, good stuff. Well, several fun storylines as we move to Wednesday night's action. In the final 6 ranked AP teams who have yet to play are playing tonight, including, speaking of Kentucky, John Calipari's Arkansas debut. We'll get to all that in just a second. Right after I tell you about ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink, which is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by a PhD scientist to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted inside of you into this toxin byproduct in your gut. And it's that byproduct. It's not dehydration that's to blame for you kind of struggling the next day. Pre-alcohol, what it does is produces an enzyme in you to break down that byproduct. So just remember, make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, stay hydrated, do all that. You're going to feel much better tomorrow. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund you that money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout for 15% off. This episode is also brought to you by our good friends at Game Time. College basketball season is here, you guys. There is nothing better in the world than the atmosphere of a great college basketball game. I think ahead to Friday night as North Carolina goes to Kansas, 2 of the blue bloods of the sport at that place, man, it's going to be special in Lawrence, Kansas. You're going to want to make sure to get there for that if you're anywhere in the area. Well, great news. When you're getting tickets for this year, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks with curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. So whether it's Game Time ticket coverage, the lowest price guarantee, or the panoramic views from your seat in the app, Game Time has got you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download their app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. Leaf, we're running just a little bit short on time here as we get towards our Wednesday night previews, but let me just rattle off these 6 AP ranked teams that are all in action tonight, and then we'll see where our conversation takes us. It is the debut of Rutgers freshman Dylan Harper, but not Rutgers freshman Ace Bailey. He will not be in, unfortunately, for Rutgers, so that's kind of a bummer. We get our back-to-back reigning national champion UConn debuting for the first time tonight, and so that'll be great to see them in action. Who's going to start? How are things going to go for this UConn team, number 3 in the AP poll as they host Sacred Heart? Creighton wants to prove that they can keep track with UConn atop the Big East. They start off their season hosting UT RGV. Tricky game for Auburn tonight, Leaf, as they host Vermont, who has not lost the American or who has been atop at least a share of the American East, I think all the way back to like 2015-16. 14-15 was the last time they weren't. Obviously, as I mentioned, it's Coach Cal's debut at Arkansas. They host Lipscomb tonight. And then we're going to get our first look at how all of Indiana's pieces fit together. Will they have enough shooting as they host SIU Edwardsville to start the season? That's the 6 AP ranked teams that are in action tonight. Leaf, out of those, what are you looking for this evening?
The one I'll be following the most closely is Arkansas, just because I want to see the amalgamation of talent and how they coalesce. I want to see if Boogie Flan plays alongside DJ Wagner, which I think is a great idea. I think Trayvon Brazil should be the odd man out, and I think that makes Arkansas better. And I want to see if Calipari is back to the early Kentucky days as opposed to just kind of playing to the favorites of the NBA. And then the other one is I want to see if UConn starts solo ball, Solomon Ball. I think he's the guy that has been generating the most buzz privately. They've been talking about him as taking the biggest step. I want to see if maybe he starts over Mahaney, maybe it's over Diarra. And all of us have questioned, hey, do they have enough size and scoring, or size and defense, depending on which backcourt they play? Well, maybe they've had it all along and we just didn't think about it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really intriguing to see. Obviously, Dan Hurley is like a man on a mission to get these 3 straight national championships, and so be really fun to watch them. Perhaps the most intriguing game of this sextet, is that what you say about a group of 6 things? A sextet?
Sounds right.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a hexatet. I don't know. Anyway, these 6 games tonight, I'm really curious to see Auburn and Vermont. I think of these 6, I think perhaps Auburn has the best chance at getting upset. And that's not about Auburn. To me, that's more about Vermont and how good they are as a team. They've already got a win under their belt, knocked off UAB on opening night. I think UAB is going to be a solid team in the AAC this year. But man, Auburn has so much versatility this year. Janai Broom is back. He last year was either 2nd or 3rd nationally in player efficiency rating behind just Zach Edey, right? And so they bring him back. There's some really good pieces coming in. We've talked about multiple freshmen. I'm really excited to see Tahad Pettiford in action for Auburn in his first game. So Leaf, obviously not a big volume of action on Wednesday like we had on Monday, but definitely several teams getting going, and I'm curious to see how they're going to go. Creighton also, I want to see how are things now that Baylor Shireman is gone? How are things now that Trey Alexander is gone, but you still keep Stephen Ashworth? You still keep Ryan Kalkbrenner, who from what Coach McDermott has said has worked really hard on his shot this offseason. Can they involve Kalkbrenner more offensively? Obviously, he is going to continue to be that defensive stalwart, looking for his 3rd straight Big East Defensive Player of the Year. But man, I think the Blue Jays need to get him more involved offensively.
Yeah, Creighton's the team that I've kind of done a 180 on, I should say.
Really?
I wasn't that high on them up until a couple nights ago, and then I put it together in my head. I was like, you know what? Defensively, it doesn't matter how inept some of their players are. They lose Shireman, they lose Alexander, and that I couldn't get that out of my head. Pop Isaacs can score. I know that.
Yes.
Ashworth, I'm a little lower on than the consensus. They have a guy named Fedor Zugic that if he's allowed to play, I think he's really, really good. But their front court depth is so much better. And I'm not saying they should take out Kalkbrenner. No, I'm saying that their 3s and 4s should be better and more able to contribute and help out as opposed to the years prior where they seem to have a guy that you would leave open. Even though Mason Miller could shoot the ball, it didn't matter. In those games, they'd be like, oh, Mason Miller's not going to kill us. Let's guard Alexander. Let's guard Shireman. And then let's box out Kalkbrenner. And they didn't have a true point guard last year. And I think they're going to be better than I initially thought this year. I was pretty low on them on the poll. And then I actually made an amendment right before we submitted our AP poll. So I had them, I want to say at 19 or 20, and I moved them up to 14. So I'm very curious to see if my initial gut reaction to their roster is better than what my head's talked me into, because I love Coach McDermott.
Yeah. For Creighton, I'm looking to see where we each have them. Yes, you're 16. I'm 14. Andy's the highest on the Blue Jays at 12. And so really interesting to see them in action. And after tonight, we will have seen all 25 of the AP Top 25. And then we'll get towards the weekend where we have 3 more ranked matchups. Andy and I will get you ready for those on Friday's show. Folks, been great to be together today on a Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining us. Been so much great action already, and we just getting started. It's so great. If you haven't subscribed to Locked On College Basketball on audio and video, go ahead and make sure you do that so you don't miss a second of all the great action this season. As always, I want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wildcats, all of the Wildcats in action. And until tomorrow, peace.